I never believed in ghosts. Not really. I thought they were just stories people told to scare themselves. But after what happened last winter, I don't know what to believe anymore. It started with a voice. I live alone in a small apartment, nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with a tiny kitchen and a living room. It's quiet, which I like. But one night, as I was falling asleep, I heard a whisper. At first, I thought it was coming from outside, maybe a neighbor talking too loudly. But it wasn't. It was in my room. A low, raspy voice. "Can you hear me?" I sat up, my heart pounding. My bedroom was dark, empty. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, scanning the room. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, it got worse. The whispers came more often, always at night. Sometimes they were soft, almost gentle. Other times, they were urgent, like someone trying desperately to get my attention. I stopped sleeping. One night, I recorded the sound on my phone. I played it back the next morning, expecting silence. But I heard it, clear as day. "I see you." I moved out that same day. I packed a bag, booked a cheap motel, and tried to convince myself I was just losing my mind. But the whisper followed me. The first night in the motel, I woke up to the feeling of breath on my neck. "I found you." I ran. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes, driving for hours, checking into another motel, drinking too much to stay numb. But no matter where I went, he was there. The last thing I remember clearly is looking in the bathroom mirror, my face pale, my eyes sunken. And then I saw him, not in the mirror. Behind me, a tall, thin figure, skin stretched too tight over his face, his mouth twisted into something that might have been a grin. He whispered one last time, and this time I understood. "You can't run." Then everything went dark. I woke up in my apartment, my old apartment, the one I left. My bag was gone. My phone was gone. It was as if I had never left. And the whispering hasn't stopped. It never will. I used to think I was a heavy sleeper. No matter how much noise there was outside, sirens, dogs barking, even thunderstorms, I never woke up. But after what happened last month, I don't sleep at all anymore. It started with small things. I'd wake up to find my bedroom door open when I was sure I had closed it. My phone, which I always left charging on my nightstand, would be on the floor. My kitchen faucet dripped at night, even though I never had plumbing issues before. I blamed myself. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I was forgetting things. But then I started waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m. every night. The first few times, I just turned over and went back to sleep. But one night, I opened my eyes and saw something in the corner of my room. A shadow. Tall. Still. I couldn't move. I could only stare. My heart pounded so hard I thought I would pass out. But after a few seconds, the shadow seemed to dissolve into the darkness. When I finally had the courage to turn on the light, nothing was there. I told myself it was just a dream. Until the next night, 3:12 a.m. I woke up, and this time the shadow was closer. At the foot of my bed, I could feel it watching me. My body was frozen in place, my breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I shut my eyes and stayed like that until the sun came up. The next morning, I set up my phone to record while I slept. I needed proof that I was losing my mind. That night, I forced myself to sleep, dreading what I might find in the morning. And I found it. The video started normal. Me asleep in bed. Hours passed in silence. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the screen glitched. A static noise filled the audio. And then movement. The closet door slowly creaked open. A figure stepped out. Tall. Thin. Its arms too long for its body. It moved toward my bed, stopping inches from my face. Then it leaned in. For nearly an hour, it just stood there, watching. And then, just before the video ended, it did something that still makes my blood run cold. It turned to the camera, and it smiled. I don't sleep anymore. And no matter where I go, I wake up at 3:12 a.m. because it knows I saw it, and now it's waiting. I was home alone when it happened. A quiet Saturday night, just me, a movie, and a storm raging outside. Thunder rumbled, shaking the windows. Rain pounded against the roof. Then knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. I froze. It was nearly midnight. I wasn't expecting anyone. I grabbed my phone and checked the security camera. Nothing. The porch was empty. The street deserted. But I knew I heard it. Knock. 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 Louder this time. A chill crawled up my spine. My first thought was that someone needed help. Maybe a stranded driver or a neighbor caught in the storm. But then I noticed something. The porch light was off. I always left it on. Always. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor across the street. Do not open the door. My breath caught in my throat. I typed back, my fingers shaking. Why? No response. And then knock, knock, knock. So loud it rattled the door. I checked the camera again. Still nothing. But as I stared at the screen, the feed glitched, just for a second. And when it came back, the door was slightly open. I was sure I hadn't moved. I was still across the room. But the door, it was opening. Slowly. Something was coming in. I ran. I locked myself in my bedroom, shoving a chair under the handle. My neighbor still hadn't answered my text. The security camera app refused to load. And then, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Moving through my house. I covered my mouth, trying to stay silent. The footsteps stopped just outside my door. Then a voice. Not loud. Not angry. Just a whisper, right at the keyhole. I know you're in there. I don't remember what happened next. Just darkness. I woke up the next morning, still in my locked room. The chair was still under the handle. The house was silent. But when I checked the security footage again, I saw something. The door opened at 11:59 p.m. A shadow slipped inside. And then at 3:12 a.m., the door opened again. And whatever had entered left. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it came. But I do know one thing. If you ever hear knocking at midnight, don't answer the door. I used to work late nights at a gas station off the highway. It wasn't a great job, but it was quiet, and I liked the solitude. Most nights, I'd only see a handful of customers, truckers stopping for coffee, tired travelers filling up their tanks. Then one night it came. It was just past 2 a.m. when I noticed a man standing outside by the gas pumps. He wasn't getting gas. He wasn't moving. Just standing there, staring at the station. At me. I felt uneasy right away. Something was wrong with him. His clothes were normal, jeans, a dark hoodie, but his posture was unnatural. Stiff. Rigid. And then I noticed his face. He was smiling. Not a normal smile. Too wide. Too perfect. Like his mouth had been stretched into place. His eyes were too big, too round. And they never blinked. I pretended not to see him. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe just some weirdo trying to mess with me. But then, he moved. Not like a person. Not like a walk. 1 second he was by the gas pumps, and the next he was at the window. I never saw him take a step. I jumped back, my heart pounding. The glass between us was thin. He was so close I could see his teeth. Perfect, white, too many of them. And he was still smiling. He raised one hand and knocked. Slow. Rhythmic. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. He tilted his head, like he was studying me. Then he whispered, voice muffled through the glass. Let me in. I shook my head. His smile widened. His head twitched. A sudden, unnatural jerk. Then he moved again. 1 second, he was at the window. The next, he was at the door. His hand was on the handle. I lunged forward and locked it just in time. He let out a sound. Not a scream. Not a growl. Something wrong. Like laughter, but hollow. Broken. Then he stepped back. And just like that, he was gone. One blink, and the parking lot was empty. No footprints. No sign he had ever been there. I quit my job the next morning. But sometimes late at night, when I'm driving alone, I check my rearview mirror. And sometimes, just for a second, I see a wide, perfect, too many teeth smile staring back at me. I never liked mirrors. There was always something unsettling about them, like they were watching you, like they remembered things you didn't. But after what happened last week, I don't look at them anymore. It started with a small crack. I have an old mirror in my bedroom, one of those antique ones with an ornate gold frame. It belonged to my grandmother, and even though I always felt uneasy around it, I kept it. Last Monday, I woke up and saw a thin, jagged crack running down the center of the glass. I didn't remember breaking it. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I caught something in the reflection. A movement. I turned quickly, scanning my empty room. Nothing. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was wrong. It was too slow. A half second behind me. I raised my hand. The reflection did the same, But there was a hesitation, a delay that made my stomach twist. Then, just as I was about to turn away, it smiled. I didn't. My reflection's lips curled upward in a grin that wasn't mine, too wide, too knowing. I turned and ran. For the rest of the night, I avoided the mirror. I didn't sleep. I kept hearing things, small, sharp taps against the glass, like fingernails scratching. The next morning, the crack was gone. I should have thrown it away. I should have smashed it to pieces. But I didn't. The next night, I woke up to a sound, a whisper. It was coming from the mirror. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to look. But I did. My reflection was standing closer than it should have been, as if the glass wasn't a barrier anymore. And this time I saw it clearly. It wasn't me. Its eyes were too dark, its fingers too long. It smiled that same twisted grin, and then it stepped forward, out of the mirror. I don't remember what happened next. Just cold hands grabbing me, pulling me. And then I woke up, in the mirror. I banged on the glass, screaming, but my voice made no sound. My room was empty. My other self was gone. And now, when people look into the mirror, I see them. I try to scream, to wave, to warn them. But no one ever notices. Until it's too late.